Before I get with my announcement, I do want to publicly acknowledge the Lyoya family, their tremendous patience and understanding as this process has developed. It's been very difficult. The loss of a child causes unimaginable pain, stress, and the emotions they must be going through all of this. I deeply appreciate what they've done, especially some of their calls for peace and calm during this entire time. I think it's been tremendously beneficial for this community, and I can't say how much I appreciate what they've done in regards to that. I just had the opportunity to speak with the family, express my condolences, and tell them essentially what I'm just telling you here. I have prepared a letter in their native Swahili, because obviously this is difficult even under the best of circumstances, much less with a language barrier. So I had a letter translated into Swahili to provide to the family so they can be fully aware of what my announcement is here today. And I've conveyed that to them and their family. I also want to thank the Michigan State Police for their dedication and really doing a thorough investigation in this matter. Detective Sergeant Aaron Tubergen really did an excellent job. He's done everything I requested of him, even on some of the follow-up, and so it's made a difficult situation obviously a little bit easier to have a partner that you can work with. Based on his investigation, based on everything he has provided to me, I've made the decision to charge Christopher Schur with one count of second-degree murder. Second-degree murder is a felony offense. It is punishable by up to life in prison with the possibility of parole. As it stands now, this is merely an allegation, and as with any defendant, he is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. The elements of second-degree murder are relatively simple. First, there was a death done by the defendant, and then when the killing occurred, the defendant had one of these three states of mind: an intent to kill, an intent to do great bodily harm, or the intent to do an act that the natural tendency of that act would be to cause death or great bodily harm. And finally, that the death was not justified or excused, for example, by self-defense. Taking a look at everything that I reviewed in this case, I believe there's a sufficient basis to proceed on a single count of second-degree murder, and that charge has been filed with the courts as of today. Given that I filed charges, and we have all of you here today, the Michigan Rules of Professional Conduct severely limit what I can say. I'm not going to be able to get into the facts, the circumstances, the decisions I made through this process. The rules of professional conduct are pretty strict. This case needs to be tried in a court of law and not necessarily in public. So I will answer some questions. I can try and answer them, but I may not be able to given the rules that I have to face. This case will be tried in the court. One other thing for the local media who's here, I think they cover us quite a bit. They will notice that we did not file a felony firearm charge. Felony firearm is a separate charge. It's a 2-year that is added on to whatever underlying felony is, and we very often charge it when a gun is used in a homicide. We cannot do so in this circumstance. In 1991, the Michigan Supreme Court in People v. Khoury, Khoury, ruled that a felony firearm cannot be charged against a police officer who used a gun in the performance of their duties. So that is why you do not see a felony firearm charge, as is often the case under these circumstances. It is my understanding, I've been in contact with the Michigan State Police, that Mr. Schur has turned himself in. He has been being processed. He will be arraigned in the 61st District Court in the city of Grand Rapids. It is my understanding that arraignment will take place sometime tomorrow. I do not have a specific time or date. That is up to the court. That is a function of the court, if you will, to take care of that. So that concludes my statement. As I said, I'll take some questions. I'll answer the questions that I can. I may not be able to answer all, and I'm just doing the questions here. I'm not going to do any individual interviews after this is all completed. So.
Did he talk to MSP? Did he sit down and do an interview with MSP?
I can't get into that. That would be a factual question in terms of that'll come out in court.
Mr. Becker, this incident happened on April 4th, so why did it take so long to come out with this charging decision today?
Hey, this is I just got the full report on the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So in terms of getting a complete report, I've only been, what is this, 8 days, 9 days after that? I mean, part of it was and it's not the Michigan State Police fault, it's getting the taser report, the forensic report from the company. And, things take time, and I want to be obviously thorough. This is obviously a major decision. We've never had to use a room like this for a case here, so it's just wanting to be thorough and go over everything. But I never got that, the full report until about 8 days ago, so I don't think this is outside the bounds of what we normally do. We have cases that sometimes takes months to charge. I have a case going on right now that took almost 6-7 months to charge. We make a decision when we have all the facts.
Mr. Prosecutor, you had said you wanted to talk with some experts
Mhm.
in your deliberation in this case. Can you give us a hint of who you talked to? Were they use of force experts? Can you tell us who you used as sounding boards?
There were use of force experts. I'm not going to get into my witnesses in terms of the case, but that I know that came up in one of the questions in terms of the Michigan State Police. I did request the Michigan State Police, ask them if they could maybe give their expertise, but there's an issue in terms of they are kind of the fact finders, and then trying to ask them to be opinions on top of the fact finders. We were a little bit uncomfortable with that, so that's part of the reason I went kind of outside, because that's been one of the things I've heard is why not use the Michigan State Police. So we tried to use them, so we went outside of that, and you'll find out about them as this case progresses.
Chris, 2 questions. One, do you think that this case should be prosecuted in Kent County, given, how much attention it's gotten? And 2, will your office be requesting that he not be given bond, or are you fine with having him released?
Two questions. Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be tried in Kent County. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know where else is it going to be tried. I mean, this is not like, only Kent County media is here today. So we've handled high-profile cases, very high-profile cases. I think I'm very confident with Kent County juries to look at the facts and kind of block this out. I've handled high-profile cases, so I'm not concerned about that. In terms of the bond issue, we don't get involved in bonds in our office. I don't know how it's done in other cases or other counties, but we're not at arraignments. I don't have the bodies to cover out arraignments, so that we have a court services that comes up with a report. I can go into that, a praxis, if you will, and they come up with a, prior history, mental health history, what the crime was, and they provide that to the judge. The judge makes the decision on bond. So that'll be essentially a court function, and we generally stay out of it. I can't say every single time, but generally stay out of it in the vast, 99% of the cases. I think let's give him next to you. He had.
For manslaughter charges, and talk about the difference between manslaughter and second degree in this case.
Obviously, we considered, we looked at everything, and so manslaughter will be a lesser included offense. The difference in manslaughter is a heat of passion. There's some sort of provocation with heat of passion, so that is something we took a look at. I felt based on the evidence I reviewed, I think a second-degree murder charge is appropriate, but that is generally a lesser included instruction should it get to a jury.
Was Grand Rapids Police Chief Lindstrom informed of your decision before you just
Yes.
announced it?
Yes, I talked to them, yes. I let them know yesterday.
Can you share anything with that conversation?
I will let him, I'm not going to speak for him, or I'll let him answer that. I'm sure they'll probably have something to say.
Mr. Prosecutor, given the second-degree murder charge, does this make it more difficult for you to prove this in court? And do you have any concerns with the jury? We're from Detroit. We came to town to cover
Sure.
the plot to kidnap the governor, and 2 men were found not guilty by that jury. So what are your thoughts about a jury, and does this charge make it a higher bar for you to win in court?
No, I don't think so. I think, obviously, I wouldn't charge if I didn't think I could prove it. I don't, be it manslaughter or second-degree murder, it's almost the same, it's the same elements, to be honest with you, except that manslaughter has the negating factor, if you look at the law, that it was done under the heat of passion. So the jury will have the opportunity to consider that. So I don't think it's a higher burden. The Whitmer jury, and I'm not a federal, so I can't comment a whole lot. I wasn't involved in that, but I have faith in Kent County juries. I mean, I think they're very conscientious. They listen, they pay attention, and they're not swayed by outside influences. I think they're very considerate. So I guess they will take the seriousness and take the time to do what they think is, right in a situation like this. I really do believe that. In the back?
Sir, did you hear from when you presented to the family, did you get feedback from them that they expressed themselves to you?
Very briefly. I mean, they said thank you, and it was a very brief phone call, so I did not, really talk to them a whole lot. With the interpreter, it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult. I also wanted them. They didn't have an opportunity to read my letter. I said, why don't you, read the letter, and we obviously we're going to talk later since we did charge, so we'll have an opportunity to speak as this goes through.
What do you
I think
this sends a message to police officers
I don't think so. I'm never big on sending messages with charges. I think most police officers realize that it could happen. I know there's been a lot of, coverage of my prior decisions, and I look at every decision and try and take every decision as the facts of the case, and I stand by all the decisions I made in the past, and I'll obviously stand by this one. So I'm not thinking that Kent County officers or even any police officers in general thought they had a license to go out and do something like this. I think this is not a message. This is just based on the facts. I'm making a decision on this case.
I know you talked about having only 8 days since you've received the full investigation materials without, I know you can't talk about what those materials were, but having all those, how were you able to make that decision in 8 days?
Well, I had a lot of the material. I mean, that was one big piece of the report, so I had a lot of it, so I was going over it, and like I said, I asked Detective Sergeant Tubergen to follow up on that, so I had a good chunk of it, so I knew what was going on. It wasn't like I was just starting from fresh 8 days ago, so this was just kind of, okay, I got the final thing, and it is a process in our office. I mean, this is, it's my decision ultimately, but I've consulted with, attorneys in my office, I've consulted with attorneys outside my office, I've consulted with people I respect, so, I think I've done everything I could to be as thorough, and it's, Scripture says that decisions are, best made when they're made in in a group, and I tried to do that.
What do you think the reaction's gonna be from people out there on the streets during this news?
I think it's going to be, I think it's split, to be honest with you. I mean, I think there's been this, I think the general consensus is I think there's a huge amount of community pressure that thinks I should charge, and if I don't charge, something's going to happen. But I mean, literally, just before I came over here, I got an email from somebody saying, I don't think you should charge. So there's a lot of people that think that this should not be charged. And so I'm very mindful of that. I hope the public reflects the care and concern I took. This was not a quick or decision I took lightly. And so we'll see how the public reacts.
What can you tell us about the role that Taser played and what that report said regarding?
Not much. You're 0 for 2. I mean, not much. I mean, obviously, we've seen the video. The Taser obviously played a role. That's why I was waiting for that forensic report. So it played a major role that I wanted to be sure what I was seeing, reflected, it was in that report. So I can say that, but how that plays out, it was a major piece. That's about all I can say, I guess.
Can you talk about how thorough your office was? Because, again, this happened back on April 4th, when people went to the review were basically getting charged with something. You guys, took your time before you decided to make a decision.
I mean, I think we try and be thorough all the times. I mean, that's one of the things I try and tell any new assistant prosecutor that starts in this office. The charging decision is the biggest decision you make, because right now, that name's out there. And whatever happens, that name's going to be out there in media searches and everything else. So we got to be careful every time. So in thoroughness, we wanted to get all the reports, look at all the evidence, follow up. We don't, rare in a case like this is we just get a report and, okay, make a decision. There's a lot. And officers, it's like, is there an officer over there? No. Officers will say, that hey, go follow up on this. It's rare that we don't do that. So that's what we try and do in making a decision, because we know this is a major step that can't be taken back. I mean, they could ultimately be found not guilty, and that would happen, but that's still, they got to go through this process, so we try and do as thorough a job as we can.
Given the elements and the circumstances of this case, and I asked this to the chief the day he released the videos, is this Michigan's version of George Floyd?
I'll let for the media to decide. I'm not going to make that call. I'll leave it up to you.
I had a question about the video release. Before the video was released, you had said that you were worried about it potentially affecting jurors' view of what happened, but also potentially altering the recollections of witnesses. So, two-part question, did you encounter that at all with witnesses in the investigation, and do you still have that concern about potential jurors?
I definitely still have the concern, because obviously it's going to make jury selection, I'm always amazed when you get to a jury selection when you have a major media case and how people don't. They're like, I haven't heard of it, I kind of remember it. I think that's not going to be quite the case here. So everybody's going to have seen it, so I think that will be an issue, no question. In terms of altering, it's hard to tell. I mean, I think I do have some concerns. I could probably discuss those a little bit more after this is all done, if you file it away for whenever this case gets done, because I think there is at least one area that it did. But beyond that, it's hard to tell what. We got most of the witnesses before that was released, so I think that's helped. But I think there may be some concerns.
Mr.
Prosecutor, are you gonna handle this case yourself, or are you gonna handle?
I am, yeah.
We'll take one more question.
I know you had said you're not big on sending messages and talking about law enforcement, but what message do you feel like this sends to the community?
I hope it sends that we take these cases seriously. I mean, I think, and I go on and speak, it's nothing different than I've said before in public, is that everybody thinks, the prosecutors are essentially an arm or just a branch of the police. And we're not. We are our own entity. We have a duty to enforce the law, be it on police or the public. And there's very often, we disagree on cases, we disagree on things that happen. We're a separate entity, and our duty is public safety. We work a lot with them, but we don't work for them. And I think law enforcement in Kent County understands that. We understand that. And so that's, hopefully the public takes that and understands that and maybe dissuades, some of the stereotypes that we've been seeing over the past couple of months.
Thank you.
One more quick one. I'll give him one more quick one.
In the range of options that you had, is this second-degree murder at the top?
Yes.
Anything above that?
I mean, the only thing above second-degree murder is first-degree murder, and there's not a sufficient basis. Premeditation, deliberation just weren't there. So, okay? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And 100% transparent with this family from day one.
na mwenye iko na sipote famille na kukua kuonesha uwazi tangia siku ya kwanza.
And he is here at our invitation, and we're eternally grateful for
Na
that.
tuko hapa na invitation yetu na tunasema asante sana.
To the right of Mr. Romack
Kwenda kwa mkono ya ingine ya mwanaume ya
Is
Papa
it-
Womack
is attorney Darren Findling,
ni avocat Darren Fenley.
Findling. Darren is with the law firm Probate Pro in Royal Oak,
Na anatumika Grand Rapide na Probate.
and the family has retained Mr. Findling as his firm to open up the probate estate,
Na jamaa Lyoya ilimwangaje kusema banamkamata kama mtu mwenye ataangalia vitu ya probation.
Which is-
Probate,
sorry.
Grand Rapide.
which is pretty standard procedure,
Na
But-
kusema standard mwa mzuri sana.
has to happen in order for there to be an initiation of any probate or civil proceedings,
Na inapasha kufika kuona kama hii ndio inapasha kufikia.
such as those that Mr. Crump and I will be discussing and contemplating.
Na njo vitu yenye mie na Mr. Crump tutakuwa tunazungumza masiku kuja.
Do we have Ben on? 2 more minutes? Okay, well, here comes this offshoot. I don't dance well anyway, so thank you. Mar, please don't dance, Ben. Just don't dance. Sorry for the Zoom problems today, guys. I apologize. Okay. Before you guys leave, if you want, I have made a copy of the second-degree murder criminal charges.
Mbele mwende nilikamata, niko na karatasi yale masharge yote yenye walifanya contre officier.
There are some what we call lesser included offenses there as well.
Na kuko vingine masharge yenye tulikuwa tunasema ya kidogo.
And these are the instructions that the prosecutor will be, or I should say the judge in the criminal case would be giving the jury.
Na injo yenye tutakuwa tunababata, jiji atapatia bajiri.
Mr. Crump is in California and trying to break it. Hey Cliff, how we doing?
I'm great, sir. I'm getting them on right now. How you doing?
I'm well, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Yes,
you,
sir.
Cliff.
We got everybody?
We got everybody.
I have more. Give me 60 seconds.
Yes, sir. So if anybody wants a copy of that, Alex Urban from Near Perfect Media has that for you in the written form.
Kila mtu wote mwenye anataka ile kopi, kuko mtu mwenye kupana atapatia hiyo.
If you'd prefer it to be emailed to you, let us know, and Danielle Aspin, my executive
Kama
assistant,
nataka tuwatumie ku email tutawatumia hayo.
or Alex will handle it.
Na Alex atafanya kazi.
Thank you for your patience.
Asante kwa uvumilivu yenu.
Danielle, we need to get a license in this room apparently. Look at us. Unlicensed room. to speak with him, I'm happy to. Thank you, Israel.
Then while we're waiting, do you want to talk about this?
Sorry, Israel's taking a quick call from someone very important in our state.
Hello, Attorney Johnson?
Ben,
Can you hear me?
I can, Ben. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm heartfelt for the Lyoya family for having this first step at justice. I believe that since the killing of George Floyd, we are on a record pace this year of police killings in America. But hopefully, will there being a measure of accountability, we can start to prevent some of these unnecessary and just killings of black men, completely unjustified. Patrick was shot in the back of the head, as we said, executed. It is more than appropriate that these charges are brought against this officer who did not have to do this. As Attorney Johnson and I have articulated that he could have done any number of things to prevent blowing Patrick Lyoya's head off. And so we stand to acknowledge this moment in Grand Rapids as hopefully a step in the right direction to prevent unnecessary excessive force against marginalized people, especially black people in America.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. And to Mr. Lyoya, my heart breaks for you and your family, because what it says today is an acknowledgement that this police officer was wrong. He was wrong. And Mr. Israel, if you can translate that, let him know, just like we said at the White House, it was wrong. We said today in Michigan, it is wrong.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Before we turn over for questions, Commissioner Womack, did you want to say anything?
I just really want to thank Ben Crump, Attorney Vern Johnson, for helping to bring national attention to this, so we can also help make sure that this doesn't happen anywhere else in America. Want to thank Peter Lyoya and his family for being patient. Thank Prosecutor Becker for explaining what took so long to have this thorough investigation.
Asante kwa Procureur Becker kwa kuexplique pourquoi ilikamata muda mrefu.
And just thank his office for sending a message to a community that's been overlooked, a community that has not always found justice, that someone else understands that our lives matter.
Na kwa biro yake kwa kusema alituma message mu community enye wanakuwa wana meprize, wanakuwa na minimize na kuona kama watabangalie, anatuma message ya kusema kama maisha watu weusi yote iko na valeur.
Questions, folks?
Yesterday you said you weren't expecting this. What you said you found out ahead of this news conference. What do you attribute it to? The gravity of the unarmed situation? And I'll let you speak. Why do you think it went the way you didn't expect?
36 years I've been doing this stuff, folks, and in only one case, one of sadly hundreds of cases, has an officer ever been charged before in one of my cases. So that's the level of my cynicism. And I commend Mr. Becker for getting beyond that. To me, this was so crystal clear that these charges absolutely had to be. The Michigan State Police doing an investigation clearly led to these charges, which tells you, although they don't make charging decisions, they felt this was what's called, sorry folks, a bad shoot.
Walifanya investigation mpaka
Translation,
comprendre.
not justified under the law.
Bakafika
Yes,
kufanya
even
kusema
with
kama
resisting arrest.
aliua mubaya.
Yes, even with the potentiality for alcohol.
Hata kama alikuwa anakunywa pombe.
Yes, even if there were other criminal issues going
Hata kama
on.
kulikuwa ingine masharti ya criminal.
It's so crystal clear, the prosecutor
Kwa procureur
filed charges in second-degree murder because, as we've been saying from day one, none of that stuff matters as it pertains to this interaction on that day.
kuangalia hiyo interaction yenye ilikuwa katikati ya Patrick na polisi.
Hope I answered your question.
Mr. Johnson, but does Mr. Lyoya want to make a statement? Does he want to say anything?
Not right now. He's going to answer questions, please. Go for
Ben,
it.
can you share, since Mr. Becker called you before you came out here, and it was a private moment?
Yes.
Can you share with us both your reaction and Patrick's dad's reaction to
Sema
the call and that decision?
reaction yako.
To be fair, and to be accurate, Mr. Becker actually called Peter.
Aliita Joe Patrick.
But I, of course, identified that I was in the room so that he knew.
Nilikuwa mshambre mule
In our legal world, that is a professional courtesy, and I would want the same.
na nilikuwa nasema yote njoo ifanye napitikana juu mimi niko avoka wake.
So when Peter answered the phone, he put it on speaker.
Wakati Peter alijibia simu akaitia kuspika,
I introduced myself.
nikajiintroduce.
He was already aware of Israel Suku,
Alikuwa shakunijua
but
Israel.
I explained to him that he is our interpreter
Na nikamfasiria kama ndio interpret wetu
and that we were all ears.
na tulikuwa hapa.
It was very brief.
Alisema kwa kifupi,
It was very to the point,
alikuwa direct.
even shorter than what he did in the press conference.
Sema alikuwa mfupi kupitia ile kupatikana mu conference de presse
And he expressed his condolences,
na akasema amekondoleanza, akasema pole yake kwa jamaa,
apologized for what had to feel to the family like taking too long.
na kalomba msamaha kwa yote yenye ilisema ilifikana kwa jamaa na kisikamata muda mrefu.
Explained why
Na
it took
akasema-
that long.
akajifasiria kwa sababu nini ilikamata muda mrefu.
And just like any good, responsible prosecutor promised that there would be follow-up,
Na kisi procureur wote general alisema se procureur wote tena kusema se ataendelesha na fuatilia kesi
in terms of cooperation between the family and the
na
prosecutor's office.
coopération entre famille na bureau procureur.
Peter, would you like to comment on what that felt like to you when you heard those words?
Anasema se eske Peter tena kuambia watu ulijisikia hizo ulisikia ile verdict.
Ninaweza nikaambia watu kwanza, ninaanza na kusema asante kwa huyu prosecutor.
First, I want to say thank you to this prosecutor. That's what I want to tell the people.
Nasema asante kwa Ben Crump lawyer.
I want to say thank you to Ben Crump, the attorney Ben Crump.
Nasema asante kwa
Ben Johnson. I want to say thank you also to attorney Ben Johnson.
Kwa hii point tunafikia eko,
where we have come today,
kweli roho yangu ilikuwa imevunjika kwa hii miezi miwili.
My heart was really broken during these 2 months, the past 2 months.
Basi maneno yalikuwa yanasemewa,
because a lot of things were said,
lakini uhakika sikukuwa nao.
I was not quite sure with the truth in my hand.
Basi na nilikuwa naona kabisa labda hakuna sheria ya Marekani,
and I was thinking maybe there's no justice in America.
Lakini kwa kufatana na gisi procureur anasema,
and to go according to what the prosecutor to charge the police officer just who killed
Patrick hatarudia. Wamefanya wako katika kazi ya mzuri.
And that brings a little bit consolation to our family, because we see everybody that will support us, everybody who stand by us, they did a good job to get this kind of justice.
Lakini nitawashukuru sana nyie wote.
And I want to say thank you to all of you, the media.
Hatutaishia hapa.
We are not done here.
Lakini tuendeleshe kutafuta tu mpaka tupate justice ya mwisho.
Let's go till to the end and let's get the last justice for Patrick.
Basi namalizia pale na washukuru sana.
I want to just stop there and want to say thank you so much.
Thank you. Sure.
Ben Israel, for Commissioner Womack, you guys have been on this for a long time and seen that video over and over again. As difficult as it is to watch, do you think you would have gotten those charges without it?
Since it only shows the truth,
Anasema alikuwa anauliza
I would
swali,
certainly hope so.
kama mungeona ile video,
But let's be real.
kama mungeona ile video,
In a word,
msharjo ile polisi,
no way. Or is that 2 words?
atungikuwa
No.
video, atungipata justice.
Israel, I mean, you, for the first demonstrations, you had members of the community on the ground recreating that.
Anasema se demonstration ya kwanza tulifanyaka, tulicreate, tukatia
As
moto
important
chini.
as it is,
Anasema
do you
important
think
iko.
that we would be here without that?
Anasema se unafikiri tungifika hapa kama tungifanya ile demonstration? You want me to answer or you want him to answer?
Peter, if you're comfortable.
Unatafuta kujibia se kama akungikuwa video, unazana tungipata justice leo?
Mimi najua hatungeona ile video na kuonesha gisi batoka miwa, najua hatungefika kwa hii hatua ya leo.
Okay, I want to say, and I know, if we didn't see the video, and if we didn't show the world what happened to Patrick, we were not going to be here where we are. And also myself, I was going to say that thank you to you, the media, special to Miss Edward and Jacqueline. They were the first person to contact, and I had an interview with them and tell them exactly what happened in the video. It's because of the video and what we did, and the attorney and by Mr. Crump, that what we have got a little bit justice, what we have heard today. Without that video, there will be no justice at all.
Robert?
And I like to say, once I heard from a few people on the scenes that he had been shot from behind, that's when I began to write a chant and talk about, show the video, we want the world to know. And that just became one of the refrains while we were in Grand Rapids. And it really just shows that without video, without body cam, how many black lives have been lost in the past that did not find justice. I'm so happy to see the justice system working, because my main reason to be involved is to show young people that there are alternatives to burning down buildings. There's alternatives to throwing bricks. We don't want any violence. But I understand how the youth feel. I understand how young people feel. I understand the frustration. As Attorney Johnson said, he's only seen one more time in Michigan of cases he had where police was charged. And now we're up to 2. So young people have saw the justice system work in the favor of police officers, whether innocent or guilty. Quantified immunity is something that they're familiar with, and they're frustrated. But days like this prove that we can believe in a process. We can believe in but the process, if we did not ask for a thorough investigation, we have proof that there's been video that's been deleted before and lost at the Grand Rapids Police Department.
Let me chime in twice on that. Lauren, I know you're going to ask me this. So I'm clairvoyant on this issue. All I have is what you all have. I still don't have the Michigan State Police, which, talk about first time in 36 years. I've always get the police report on behalf of the family before now. They withheld it till today, so I cannot wait, and yes, I will share it. You all know I will. Because it's a FOIA document, Freedom of Information Act request, and I put that in air quotes. The evidence is, we all know, that the body cam was turned off. The only way this body cam turns off, is to hold the button down for 3 continuous seconds.
na unapaswa kufinyanga button
Hello? This was not an accidental turnoff.
hii haikuwa accident kusema silizimika,
More later.
ilikuwa mingi,
Video.
kulikuwa video
Critical, not just to prosecute a police officer,
kusema bamustaki policier,
but the statistics show, y'all,
mais statistique
that
inaonyesha
it actually inures to the officer's benefit the overwhelming majority of the time.
na anasema sasa kwa kila siku ku benefit ya bajoi ya mapolisi.
But what is happening in our police agencies is
Agence ya police
there is a non-compliance rate that is so high
na kuko nani to nyeko yulu
that they never turn them on,
abakoe banaiwasha,
they turn them off.
banakuwa banazimisha.
I would argue, without a whole lot of proof, they erase it
Ndaidiskite batena kusema sasa walionesha walizimisha
easily. In half the cases that I deal with
na makese
with
mingi
body cams,
katika makamera
on-dash cams,
ku dash cam
it wasn't working that day.
haikuwa natumika ile siku,
It didn't record the right way.
haikufanya registrement mzuri.
Fact of the matter is, we as a society, you folks in doing what you do, and again, thank you, great work.
Kusema seki ya mzuri kama nyie mko
We
mnafanya
need to hold our police agencies, our cities, responsible
responsable
for using this equipment every single day, every single time.
kila siku na kila saa.
No matter what happens, let the chips fall where they may. That's what I call transparency. Not using that word while I'm telling you why I'm hiding something from you.
Nasema sasa tunatumikisha ile jina ile parole
And that was my question. The point of contention from day one was that body cam and how it was knocked off or turned off. And so I was gonna ask, are you still gonna look into that?
Oh, yes,
And-
ma'am.
and what
anasema
could
sasa
come
kesho yangu
from that?
ilikuwa
If you find
tangia siku ya
discrepancies,
kwanza banasema
what
sasa
could
ile
come from
ile kamera ile angukaka na nampoze
One of
kesho,
the
kesho utangalia ile asemi
Missing pieces of evidence
na kitu mindasema sasa kitu ya evidence yenye ilikuwa nakosa
when the MSP report was given to Mr. Becker
wakati raporo ya Michigan State Police
as he claimed,
alisema sasa walimpata
was the download from the on-dash camera on
anasema
top of
sasa
the
ilikuwa yenye walitelecharge kutoka ku dash cam
dash of the car,
kutoka ku voiture
and I lied, sorry, body camera,
ile
and
body camera
the taser, which likewise has video
na ilikuwa na
capabilities.
video
Typically, we'll find out all together.
na tutakuwa tunaangalia
So what you're going to find is that this body camera never was turned off accidentally ever before in history,
anasema sasa hii ukiangalia
except on
hii makamera kumwili
April 4,
hakuna hata siku
2022.
moja
So
zimisha
that would
baraza.
certainly damage Officer Schuer's, what will clearly be his version of what happened
na
that
ile
day
vraiment
on a variety
itakuja
of
version yake
topics.
yote mbaya yenye alikuwa anasema
So
yao.
we'll see. Yes, you know, Laura and I am going to
If I
go
could say
crazy
something
on that.
quick, I would say, with all the money we pay
Na hiyo
as
yote kusema sema
taxpayers
kutenye
for
tu
body
tunalipa
cam,
kama baba taxpayer
only civilians caught the footage of Patrick Lyoya actually being shot.
basi wasi
Not
banani
the dash
wasivile
cam
ndio
of
wenye
the
walikamata
police department
image
officer's
zilikuwa na
car,
Patrick
not the
risasi.
body cam.
Hakukuwa hata body
Only the
cam,
ring
hakukuwa hata mtu gari.
of a neighbor
Ilikuwa
and the
kamera ya neighbor.
passenger who got fast got out the car.
Ndio mwenye
and
alitoka
filmed
mgari akaanza
was the
kufilm.
actual shooting caught.
Na ndio mwenye alishupiga ile
And
masasi. Alikuwa anaona
on that point, Robert, we often see online, right, videos now of everything, and people that are filming are often harassed by police and people online. And again, my question to you all, right back, where would we be without it?
na tungekuwa wapi kama tungekuwa na
So,
fake
great question. Yes, sir.
2 points for clarity, please. When did the phone call come specifically?
You mean for Mr. Becker?
Yes. How long before this news briefing?
Approximately, it was 3 o'clock press conference, 2:55-ish. We were literally, I got out of my chair and we were walking to this room.
And secondly, I have not heard, maybe I'm not paying close enough attention, but the reason why it took 2 months.
Anamuuliza cette question.
Can you paraphrase what you were told?
saa ngapi njoo ileta apele ilifika.
Yes, Mr. Becker
Anamwambia saa apele
said
ilifika
that he
ilikuwa
felt
na
the
14
need
seconds.
to wait for the downloads
Anasema
of the
sasa
on-body
alikuwa
camera,
anachunga wampatie
in other words,
flash
from other days,
ya ile kamera
and the
ilikuwa
download from the taser from other days. They already had what they had on the day of. That's what he said. He apparently also did not go into detail, but publicly, I've read, that he said that he wanted to contact experts.
Alikuwa
And you all will remember in George Floyd,
Unakumbuka mkaa ya George
one of the
Floyd.
first things that we all saw on TV, and number one thing I want to say to you all, please insist in being in that courtroom every single day in Kent County, Michigan, for every part of this trial, for every hearing, for every trial,
George Floyd, kitu cha kwanza walisema mtelevisheni kwa nini?
so that the public obviously can see this process, which I think only makes us stronger.
Iko na balomba bote bakwe mkuu kila siku sasa tunafanya hivi.
Lost it. Where was I going?
You gave me what I needed.
What was the second part? What the heck was I saying?
The second part was why it waited 2 months.
Oh, he said that he wanted to talk to experts. And in George Floyd, what was one of the most critical parts is you saw chiefs of police from not just Minneapolis, but from other places across the country coming in to say, no, what this officer did was not what he was trained, was wrong. You're going to see the same thing in this case you watch, in criminal and in civil.
Itakuwa msivil na mkriminali.
I want to see Christopher Sure fired immediately.
Mimi
I'm sure
natafuta
our
Christopher
community wants the
Bamufukuze.
same thing.
Bamufukuze.
Even if the Department of Justice may still get involved in terms of filing civil rights complaints or filing charges on those end, or no? Is there-
Help me to I didn't hear your first part. I'm sorry.
The Department of Justice,
Yes.
Reverend Sharpton had asked for the DOJ to get involved.
Yes.
Is that something you would still ask for, and could they also possibly get, or no, did they
Oh.
have to wait for this to play out?
Lucky for me, I don't have to wait for it because Ben Crump's already done it. But there's no question, just like with Officer Chauvin in the George Floyd murder, you can have two different tracks, one state, one's federal. So without any question, we will be formally asking the Department of Justice to be reviewing this thing. And to refresh your memories, after Chauvin was convicted of the same crime that Officer Shure, y'all, was charged with today, second-degree murder, if that was lost on anybody, same crime, a little bit different words sometimes because it's Minnesota versus Michigan, same crime. Once he was convicted of that, then he actually, Chauvin, pled guilty to the federal charges in federal court in Minneapolis. So we would ask that the same review process, and obviously anything we learn that we can make public, we will do so.
Has Peter had a chance to tell his wife about the charges?
Anasema se kama ushapata chance ya kuambia bibi yako juu ya masharti.
Bado sijamwona.
No, he hasn't. He has been here.
Exactly. What will this mean to his family?
Anasema
When you
hii
share that news?
itakuwa na signification gani kujamaa ya kusota bapatia kama upolisi wanamkamata kupable na wanamsharti.
No. Mimi naweza nikasema kwa jamaa yangu,
What I can say to my family,
wakati wangali wanasikia kama huyu polisi angali kwake, analala kwake, anaenda sokoni kuemea, mpaka hivi hawajakubali kama huko sheria yenyewe itakamatiwa juu yake.
from the moment they would keep hearing that the police officer was still free, he was at his place, he could go to the market, he could shop, he could spend time with his family. They really strongly believe that there was no justice in America until maybe today.
Yeah, basi na kwa hii najua kama kweli hawatakubali mpaka watakubali wakati leo muda itafika, wasikie kama wamemjudge na ameenda labda amesimamishiwa kazi au ameenda jela.
And he said, now, even though they may not believe 100%, until when they will see him be fired, being arrested and be put to jail, that when they will be a little bit happy to see that justice has been served.
Ben, does any
Meeting with President Biden, the meeting he had with President Biden, I didn't get a chance to ask about that. How did that go with the meeting with the president? What did he say to them?
Well, you certainly want to hear from my client versus a lawyer. It was one of the greatest privileges of my lifetime, after doing this type of work for 36 years, to be with my client and Ben Crump in that room. But what was not lost on me or anybody in that room were the folks that we were in that room sharing that moment with were there for one reason, because they'd lost a loved one like Peter lost Patrick. So it was a very intense, very emotional day, and to see a sitting president for the first time in United States history sign an executive order on police reform. To say it was long overdue would be disrespectful to President Biden But it was wonderful to see that first step on what we believe needs to be a number of steps that should go a lot farther than that was. But we were greatly appreciative. My client through Israel, Mr. Saku, had a very nice one-on-one conversation with President Biden right here and Vice President Harris right there. And it was very emotional, to say the least. From a lawyer, now I'll give you the real answer. President, when we were with the President, what did you think and feel?
Can I state what
And the Vice President?
Can I state what Peter told the President?
Yes.
When he shook the President's hand, he looked the President in the eyes and he said, I need justice for my son. I came to America as a refugee. I ran away from war. I thought maybe I would be safe with my family here. But my son has been killed. I just need justice. And there's a very interesting that the President did. He said, I know. When he told him, he said, I am Patrick Lyoya, father. The President said, I know. That to show you the kind of man that he is. He's paying attention to his people. And that was a little bit consolation for Peter. And when he told him that I need justice for my son, the President looked at him and said, I know.
It should not be lost on anyone in this room. There was only one family there who hadn't already been through a criminal and or civil process, Loyola's, and we were still in that room. So clearly, to the President and Vice President of the United States, even though criminal charges were not pending at the time, they knew how bad this was. And we acknowledge that and we thank them for what they did that day. Commissioner?
Fine.
Please.
When you talk about thinking about civil proceedings,
Yes.
do you wait until formal remand on criminal, or does there have to be a conviction? Timing in regards to filing?
There is no law that prohibits me or us from filing a civil case at any time. So we could have done it already had we chosen to. But obviously I work with Ben Crump and we're working as a team. What we'll do now is we'll have a chance to review. We've already drafted a lawsuit called a complaint. Drafted simply means it's in its phases. It's right here. And we're reviewing it to make it as, pristine as possible. We'll make our recommendations to the family about timing. And they're the bosses. And if Peter says yes, then we file. If Peter says no, then we don't. But there is nothing that would prohibit us from filing at this point or any point before now. So the question is, will we likely be filing the civil case? And the answer is yes, we will.
Yes, tutaporte plainte.
There's still a long road ahead before we know if there's going to be any convictions for Mr. Lyoya. How does he feel about the days to come?
Anasema masiku za mrefu zikingaliki na kujua kama petetre huyu mtu watamfunga kama watamfunga. Unasikia hiyo, uko unajisikia ikiwa masiku yenye uko nakia mbele. Selon wewe unaona hiyo?
Selon mimi najua kama kufuatana na labda sheria hapa Marekani vitakamata muda.
According to me, the way I know that with the law here in the United States it may take long.
Basi mimi nilishapoteza kwanza.
I have lost
na nilishavumilia.
I have really patient.
Mimi nitachunga tu.
What I will wait.
Nasubiria tu ile sheria.
I just wait for justice.
Hiyo virefu, hiyo vifupi, lakini mimi nachunga tu ni sheria.
It can be long, it can be short, but what I want just is the final justice for my son.
Charges are one thing, you all know that. Convictions, a whole other thing. So again, it's a long road, and family will know that, and we will be right there with them the whole way. Anybody else before we go? Really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you. Sorry for the Zoomology and the cramped quarters. Thank you. take that and I'll give it right back to you. Sorry?
10 minutes.
Yes, sir. I'll be in my office. Thank you, Alex. And you've got the criminal jury instructions, right?